So from the previous study, we know that the government aims in the Gray model should act as the guideline or guidance on government work. From an economics perspective, all economic policies making should be based on these aims as well. However, these aims won't be realized themselves. And given the problem with natural selection and human habit we discussed earlier, the government have the duty to support the weak and make sure that the strong do not abuse their power and take advantage or take everything from the weak. In other words, the sovereign should establish universal justice. The Great Model also suggests do not let him oppress the friendless and childless, nor let him fear the high and distinguished. So in this sentence, the first, him refers to those with power, while the second him refers to the weak and low. I think this particular duty is very meaningful. You see, the Gray model does not advocate a simple equal sharing policy. In a future lecture on the topic of distribution, we'll see that simple equal share is neither justified nor productive. Okay, what the Confucian advocates is that wealth and honor must go hand in hand with productivity, whereas productivity includes both material contribution and moral superiority, because moral superiority has a positive spillover effect on the rest of the society. So in the future lecture, we'll see that, when everyone in the society has nearly equal chance to achieve the required skills and moral standards through education, then everyone is content with their position. And this way, the poor do not envy the rich, and the rich do not have the sense of pride. But for now, let's remember that with regard to wealth and income distribution, the duty of the government is not about equal shares on the absolute terms, but more about the equality of human relation. Now, interestingly, in the traditional Chinese culture, people have given an overarching description of the duty of the government, and it is presented by the three parallel roles to the people. And they are the leader, or we can call it the king, right? The parent, and the teacher. So, in fact, in the past 5,000 years, this triple roles have been applied to all Chinese government officials, from the lowest ranking officers to the emperor himself. People's happiness is very closely related to how well these roles are fulfilled. There are very specific requirements about these three roles. First of all, the king. So in the past, kings make the final decisions, right? And in modern society, it is not one person at top, but the government as a whole that makes the final decision for the people. And we can argue that in a democratic political system, it is people who make the decision. However, the government certainly plays a significant role in setting the tone of the direction of major economic policies, right? In traditional Chinese culture, one requirement on the ruling body is that it must be very careful with what it says. We say that king makes no joke. This is how the government established credibility. There's no way that the government says one thing today and say the other tomorrow. This means that the government must be extremely careful in the message that it conveys, because it bears credibility. So the king, the queen, the government, the ruler, whatever the name is, the ruling body always leads the way of the people. So economic policies that go along with human nature and ethics will lead to prosperity. Otherwise, disasters will follow. So that's the first role. Now, the second role of the government is to act as the parent of the people. The Chinese call the officials, we have a special word for it, for them. We call them parent governor. Okay, parent governor. And but you can see this shows the kind of intimacy. The governor and the governed are not opposing enemies. The government think about what the people need, what they worry about in their life. The government also protect the people and nourish the people. And of course, it takes a lot, to put that into practice. But so does parenting. How the government think about the people is very important. It is like the difference between thinking for your own children, if you have one, thinking about for your own children and thinking for somebody else's children. I mean, the mentality is a little different, at least. Now, of course, this sounds a bit cruel, but probably true. That we tend to think more thoroughly and responsibly for our own children. Now, remember in a previous lecture when we, mentioned the past king of Thailand, His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej, he was held in great respect by the Thai people, and he was a modern example of a king who treated his people as his own children. The third role of the government is to act as the teacher of the people. In modern society, this notion may seem a bit odd and may receive immediate resistance. After all, not even the real teachers at school and universities like me receive proper respect these days. However, this role doesn't entail, the simple and naive scenario where the government official tell people what to do. In fact, the government is acting as the role model to the people all the time. For example, the UK government initiated a parliamentary role model campaign in 2015. This campaign recognizes the importance of a working environment where people are valued for who they are and how they contribute to making Parliament a positive and inclusive workplace. So there were 12 people selected as the role models, and they demonstrated that they have visibly championed equality and inclusion and made positive difference to the people, and they've been generous with their time and expertise. So these role models also show that they are self-reflective, demonstrate self-awareness of how attitudes and behavior can impact on others, and also align their values with how they act in order to inspire other people to be themselves at work, and also to be the best that they can be. But most importantly, the campaign is made visible to the general public. So while encouraging people to engage with the Parliament, it inspires the public and teaches people how to be themselves at the workplace. So this is a way of educating the people by doing. The ancient Chinese sages fully recognize the importance of the role model of the government. Confucius pointed out that if a minister make his own conduct correct, there is no difficulty he will have in assisting in government. If he cannot rectify himself, there is no way that he can rectify others. Confucius also mentioned very specifically about the essence of government intervention from the point of view of role model. He said, when a ruler's personal conduct is correct, his government is effective without the issuing of orders. If his personal conduct is not correct, He may issue orders, but they will not be followed. So this principle, you can see, is not limited to China, but it's universal and time invariant. Dr. Ryan Messmore, the assistant headmaster of academic affairs of St. David's School of Raleigh, North Carolina in the US, mentioned in his 2007 report that the primary task of government is administering judgment according to the standards of justice. Because law, by its very nature, concerns moral judgment. A government that stands under the rule of law presupposes the existence of a moral order, express the social concept of that order, and in turn encourages the fundamental moral principles of a society, particularly regarding justice. Citizens' assumptions and expectations of government therefore shape their approach to issues like poverty and economic justice. So, all in all, it is true that much of the misconduct of the people is due to the lacking of education. And it is the responsibility of the leaders to set the right moral standard by demonstrating themselves. So people follow the role models, they don't follow the rules. So sometimes people do break the law because the rulers have failed their duties in educating the people. So Zhengzi said, the punishment imposed on offenders should be received by griefs and pity, not a feeling of enjoyment or, aha, you got what you deserved. That is not the right attitude. The understanding of the necessity of government intervention, as you can see now, it comes a long way. We know that part of the aims of the government is to help the people to realize the 5 blessings, right? And so when listing these 5 blessings, the canon of history put the accumulation of wealth as the first order. Also, the Park of Narratives summarizes this idea as follows. He said, as granaries occupy the warehouse, the people come to understand rights or propriety. When wealth is sufficient, the people understand honor. Granary is what makes the state prosperous, men and women beautiful, morality prevailing, and the mind satisfied. The canon of history lists wealth as the first of the 5 blessings. While Zigong asked Confucius about governance, Confucius replied, enrich the people, then educate them. This is the foundation of governance. So it's clear that, as the leader of the people, the government has the duties to fight the downside of natural selection and the downside of human habit. Then, after wealth is accumulated and people are enriched, it is again the duty of the government to act with the highest moral standard in order to educate the people and achieve social stability.